initiative which deals with culture in foreign relations. Carried on by a couple of NGOs, debate houses all over Europe, foundations like the Norwegian Foundation for the Freedom of Expression, Fritt Ord, the European Cultural Foundation, with the support of a couple of influential cultural institutes, the Danish Cultural Institute, Institute for Foreign Relations, the Goethe Institute, British Council, and the Institut Français.
Now, more Europe means more capacity, more Europe means more visibility, more results, and more impact in terms of democracy building, and has, of course, also a very strong impact on civil society. Clearly.
UNIC is a very successful long-term institutional process of the National Cultural Institute.
An association of all the cultural and language institute that works abroad. It's also Europe abroad, but it's also Europe in Europe.
It's a good timing, I believe, because the time is now. The time is now to talk about more specifically about the role of culture in the now newly established external relations of the European Union.
We think that there's a window of opportunity. We think that it's time to act. We think that 2014, the new budget framework, provide an opportunity to rethink our use of civilian power, I would like to call it, not soft power, maybe civilian power. This opportunity needs to be used now, and it needs to be debated widely. So one of the primary goals of this initiative is to go through all the capitals, or many capitals of Europe, and involve citizens in this debate, and to give answers to their demands and to their questions. So it's a public media citizens initiative which addresses citizens.
Europe is not in a very good shape, and if we as the ES come out and say now we need more resources for a big cultural diplomacy or a big cultural policy, people are going to look at us and tell us you're very nice, but don't you think you have better priorities first to look at?
There are civilian movements like More Europe who go to the capitals of Europe now together with leading artists and to mobilize the media for that. So again, I think there is a window of opportunity, and if you invite the key stakeholders to open really the box and to think about ways forward, I think we can do it now, even if it is a long process. But we need a first step, maybe something like a light structure of talking to each other.
Should we think that, should we resign and just decide not to fight? Certainly not, otherwise I wouldn't be here. And if I tried to defend that point of view, you would kill me anyway, and you would be right in doing so.
There should be resources, or better in difficult times like these, a pooling of resources. A clear pooling of resources and being inventive for new resources, using also the possibilities of the delegations. The member states are under financial pressure. Some of the cultural institutes are under huge financial pressure. It's a good moment also to think about joint synergies.
Now we have a sort of shortage in terms of financial resources, and now we are dragged by necessity, I would say, into a better cooperation between ourselves.
The EU might not be accused of imperialism as often as the US, but it certainly is accused of Eurocentrism, of trying to impose its values on other cultures and considering universal values as European.
Many people in the non-West are not particularly interested in becoming like us. If anything, they are attracted by the commodified market culture of the United States. We tend to be very impressed by what we've done in Europe. But for people in other parts of the world, they don't take this to be something as marvelous as all that. For example, when India adopted its constitution in 1950, the words unity and in diversity were adopted in 1950 as the slogan, the bannerhead for the Indian Republic.
If European culture is values, I do believe we have European culture. Memory conservation, literature and painting of the past, great art, it's also something that exists. If we speak about cutting-edge theater, I would say avant-garde poetry and art, internet, even art innovation, it might exist. But if we go back on what is culture for people, a lot of people, youth, if we are thinking about mainstream culture, about films, today no films, basically European films, are attracting youth. No bestsellers are European for the masses. No video games for the kids. No, not even a language. Culture was supposed to be one of the reasons why we created Europe. And today it became the last and maybe the least European element of our identity.
Having lived before coming back to Brussels 3 or 4 years in the United States, I still think that it's quite interesting to be outside of Europe to understand what European culture is all about. There is something that defines us and that makes us different from the others. I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's a combination of many things.
What is European culture today? And the answer is, I don't know.
Culture is one of our strongest assets for and in the European Union, the European Union's image and standing in the world. In a way, it is the European Union brand. This is what culture is all about. Basically, this cultural diplomacy, with a few exceptions, follows the nation-state logic.
Governments of nation-states all invariably use national culture as a form of capital in a game of acquisition of prestige in what is in fact a global political economy. How is it that you're going to be able to override all of the national motivations by having a common policy?
What we need is nothing less than a joint vision and a common strategy when it comes to the European Union's external relations. What we should all aim for is really the complementarity. This, for me, is in fact the slogan.
It would be good to have a structure in the European Action Service. Some kind of structure which responds to the needs, to the demands, helps to complement the efforts of the member states, helps to coordinate some efforts, which gives a face, a vis-à-vis for the civil society, which coordinates also within the different units of the Commission, because it's not true that there is nothing in place. There are many instruments in place. But the visibility and the cohesion sometimes lag behind the sheer amount of resources which are spent.
The EU for years, had it maybe done more in cultural relations, would have seen the Arab Spring coming, would have read the writers, listened to the poets, seen in the movies that it was almost an announced event. And I think that that dimension is the heart of what is happening today, needs a planned approach, and of course the EAS would be the right one, because it is exposed, without trying to organize it, by respecting the autonomy of that field. If the EU can really realize how important it is, I would feel that it's a dimension which could give a great plus to European relations with the rest of the world.
I do believe cultural policy is part of the UE policy at large.
Citizens express themselves first and foremost by their identity, by their culture, by the way they express themselves as individuals.
Citizens really want a strong Europe. That trust building and rebuilding trust means also convincing them that Europe plays a firm role in shaping globalization actively, but they want to see a Europe which has a face which is it's a modest, it's a humble, it's a listening attitude. It's not so much, I think, about cultural diplomacy, even not in a modern form, but it's about cultural relations.
It's very much about bottom-up, and I think we have to open the box and let people come out with as many ideas as they can.